Hey, there we go.
There we go. Holy cow.
How you doing,
I don't
coach?
know. I'm doing well. How are you
Good.
doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Gotta have my reading glasses on because I can't see anything.
Oh yeah. How have things been for you?
You know what? Things have been really good. Been still been, you know, doing really good. I'm a solid geezer at 78 now and
Yeah.
still working out and doing our doing our thing every Wednesday with people that need help, in the Olympic lifts,
Hmm.
up at Mike's gym. So yeah, I have no complaints. Just trying to still live the good life.
Good. So you're still doing your geezer club?
Yep. Yeah, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, the geezers come in and from 8 o'clock until about 10 o'clock or so. And then on Wednesdays, we have open gym. So anybody that has a need to have some help in the Olympic lifts, then we'll do that. Um, yeah. So and then playing pickleball 4 or 5 days a week
Oh, nice.
and doing. I go down to this place in Carlsbad, California, called Breathe Degrees, and I do cold plunging.
Okay.
Oh,
So you're on
so
the cold plunge train with everyone else, huh?
oh man, am I ever? I mean, I've really, it's really been a godsend, quite frankly. It's
Hmm.
really been good. Yeah, I can't, I don't know, I can't say how much it has helped. I've had two knees. I had a
Hmm.
hip replacement scheduled one, uh, 1 July, and I postponed it
Oh,
because of
really?
the ice, and my wife got a red lamp,
Hmm.
red light therapy deal, and I've been doing that. And so I don't know, I just got a second opinion, and the guy said I'd wait as long as you can.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and I
Well,
I, I got a cortisone shot.
yeah.
But yeah,
Good for
what about
you.
you? What's happening with you?
Well, let's see. Since we last spoke, I think the last time I saw you was when you were in Ann Arbor.
Right,
You're visiting Casey and Natalie, and I was coaching at that gym. And you got me in touch with Louis Simmons. So I went and
right.
trained with Louis at West Side, and that was the spring before I went to PT school. So from there, I went to PT school in Indianapolis, and then graduated, moved down to Nashville, and then I basically started my own business. So I'm doing online coaching for the Olympic lifts and then some rehab as well for like weightlifters and CrossFit athletes and stuff.
That's great. So
Yeah.
CrossFit's keeping you rich now.
I don't know about rich, but there's a larger supply or a larger, I think, demand with like CrossFit athletes than there is with weightlifters. I think that community is a little bit bigger.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. I there's no doubt about it. I'll tell you the weightlifting is. Oh, sure. There we go. The weightlifting community is I mean they're pretty. I actually think the weightlifters are pretty smart. They can be injury free.
Mhm.
And they don't do the high volume and in high intensity training that the CrossFitter does. That's the other thing. So
Yeah.
not that the weightlifter doesn't, the weightlifter works his ass off, and I get it, but the CrossFitter is the guy that, I mean, you know, 30 30 reps in the snatch and 30 reps in the clean and jerk, and
Hmm.
all the other stuff that they do is really intense. So,
Yeah.
but
Louis had an interesting saying. He told me CrossFitters do a lot of work, but they don't work hard. Which I don't know if I agree with that, but
yeah,
it is true that they do a ton of volume, right? With like
yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
not just with the Olympic lifts, but with the gymnastic stuff and like
oh sure.
everything. So
Well, I always liked what Greg Glassman said. His point was that give me a weightlifter, and the weightlifter is going to want to do the snatch and clean and jerk. You know, give me a triathlete, and the triathlete's going to want to bike, run, and swim, right?
Mhm.
But the CrossFitter, give me a hundred ping pong balls with an exercise and a hopper, and the CrossFitter's going, I don't give a shit what you pull out. You know, you can
Mhm.
pull out anything, and I'm gonna do good. You know, I may not win, but I'm gonna beat you because all you want to do is the snatch and clean and jerk, and all you want to do in the triathlete is bike, run, and swim. So
Yep.
the others, 8 and 7 exercises, I'm going to kick your ass, and they're right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, here's the other thing too. If it hadn't been for CrossFit, I don't think the Olympic lifting arena would have been to fruition like it is now. I mean,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
when I was at the peak of my journey in weightlifting, 2007 and 8, there was maybe, I don't know, 3, 4,000 members of weightlifters.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then, now there's like 40,000 members or something like that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Weightlifting definitely does owe a lot to CrossFit. And obviously, like, you've been involved quite a bit, like, with the CrossFit community and everything.
Oh,
So
yeah.
talk about like how you got involved with that. Like, how did you go from being a very uh highly renowned like weightlifting coach to kind of
Yeah.
getting into the CrossFit community?
Yeah, it's interesting the way that happened. And this is before CrossFit was even a thing.
Hmm.
Okay, so Greg Glassman called up USA Weightlifting, and this was like 2003 or four, somewhere around in there. Called him up and says, "I want to bring a bunch of athletes down to a coaching course, a USA weightlifting certified coaching course."
Hmm.
And they told him to come contact Mike Burgener down at Rancho Buena Vista High School, and he'll put on a course for you. So Glassman called me up, and we set up a date, and he brought down, I don't know, 15, 20 CrossFit athletes that trained at his gym. And this is
Hmm.
before CrossFit was even a thing, right? And he he came down, and he loved what we did. He loved my presentation.
Hmm.
And then the next week he called me back up, and he said, "Look, we're going to go over to Boulder, Colorado, Golden, Colorado, and I've been asked to present to Navy SEALs, Marine Force Recon,
Hmm.
firefighters, first responders, and I'd like you to come with me and present 3 hours. I'm going to give you 3 hours and present, what you think would be good for these guys to know about the Olympic lifts." And so I went, and the guy paid Glassman $8,000 to come over and do that. And he walked into the gym, and there was 50 first responders, and this guy charged these guys $500. So
Hmm.
that's $25,000, right? So
Hmm.
Glassman was like, when everything was over with, I could tell that he was pretty upset with himself, because he made 8,000, which is good money, but still, this guy made 25,000 on his expertise. So
Hmm.
we all flew home, and a week later he calls me up and he says, "Look, we're going to start a thing called CrossFit,
Hmm.
and we're going to have one session a month, 3 hours every month. We're going to put on a session. We're going to have 60 people. That's going to be our goal: 60 people in a session, and we're going to charge them $1,000." And I'm going, "That's $60,000 a week or a
Hmm.
month? Are you kidding me? You're going to do this?" He said, "Yeah, and it's going to work. It's going to be outstanding, and we want you to be part of it."
Hmm.
And that's basically, so once a month for a year, I had a Harley, and I got on my Harley. I'd ride it up to Santa Cruz, and I'd present 3 hours of that presentation, and it was like, whoa, this was great. I made $18,000 that year doing the Burgener warm up, the skill transfer exercises, and 3 position snatches. That's
Hmm.
what I had, 3 hours to present, and that expertise right there, the Burgener warm up and skill transfer exercises and 3 position snatches, is the way I opened my certifications even
Mm-hmm.
to this day. The very first on Saturday from 9 to 12, that 3 hours is exactly what I do. I do those three things: Burgener warm up, skill transfer, and the three position snatches.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, then, a year later, he knocked it down to 2 days and gave me an opportunity to start my own business. I became the subject matter expert for CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting. And, I was able to schedule courses under the CrossFit umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it took off. And it was crazy. I tried to get USA weightlifting involved. I told them, you guys ought to start doing this. This needs to happen. And they thought I was crazy. They thought I was nuts. And then about 3 or 4 years later, they came up to me and said, God, you were right all along. Thank God for Glassman, and thank God for you for
Yeah.
sticking to it, because it really helped us a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible. Wow. So you were
Yeah.
there from the start. Like you were there
Very-
from the
Yeah.
inception of CrossFit.
Yeah, it was amazing because, as I understand it, Glassman was married to Lauren Glassman, and he worked in a global gym,
Mm.
and but they had this idea, and he loved the high intensity training. That was his baby. CrossFit was really high intensity, but he wanted to take that and sell it to the military. He
Mm.
wanted to
Mm.
take his theory and sell it to the Pentagon, so that every military person, Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force, Coast Guard, could have that and induction to that into their fitness programs.
Mm.
And you know they didn't they didn't like it, or they didn't listen. They thought it was too much. But then the Secret Service called him up, and
Mm.
Glassman, for about a month or two, three, every week he would come out with, or every day he would come out with a WOD. It was one day, every day of the
Mm.
week, and it was called the workout of the day. And he just called it the WOD. He got a website, called it the WOD, but the Secret Service got a hold of it, and they started doing it, but their fitness levels went through the roof.
Mm.
And Glassman thought he was in trouble when they called him up and said, "Hey, we want to come out to your place and get
Mm.
certified in CrossFit." And this was prior to everything else that I told you that happened.
Oh
That was
wow.
prior to that. So this whole thing was started because him and Lauren Glassman started a WOD,
Mm.
put out on the internet, and people started finding him.
Wow.
So
That's incredible.
yeah,
So-
it's a great story. And you take a guy that went from rags, basically working at 24-hour fitness and LA fitness type of arenas, the global gym,
Mm.
uh, to a guy that revolutionized fitness in my ideas.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
you've seen the whole thing, right? You've seen the progression of weightlifting since before CrossFit to where it is now, where it's there's been this big resurgence and it's become like way more popular. So
Exactly.
what does that look like for you in terms of like where weightlifting was when you kind of got into it and like where it's progressed to now?
Well, that's a great question, because if you take a look at this year, I mean, there's chances that we're going to win medals at the Olympics, right?
I think knock on wood, Olivia, she's got a shot to bring home the gold. I mean, if
Oh,
you
I
know,
I think I think she too, and then the young kid from I don't even know where he's from, Georgia or someplace. I think it is
Hampton,
at
yeah,
Hampton. I think he's another one. And don't forget
yeah,
the big girl. I mean, she's not bad
Mary,
either.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It. I think that's what's happened. Years ago, USA weightlifting, when I was heavily involved with them. I told them, I said, look, we've got to get moms and dads involved. We
mm,
got to get the high schools, because I was a high school teacher, and I'm going, we got to get the high school coaches involved. But in the high school arena, the coaches don't want anything to do with, they don't want anything to do with giving up their athlete to a
Right.
potential of another sport, right?
Right.
I've fought that for years, you know. I mean,
Mhm.
I love football. I played football in college, and I thought weightlifting was a great, medium to make that football player a better, more powerful athlete, right?
Mhm.
And but the football coach, the head football coach, even though they loved me as a strength coach, they didn't want their athletes participating in an off-season program in the Olympic lifts, even though the benefits were through the roof. They didn't want to share
Right.
athletes with anybody. But in the CrossFit world, moms and dads started doing this stuff,
Mhm.
and they had moms and dads have kids.
Mhm.
And the moms and dads started bringing kids to these gyms, right? They started bringing the sons and daughters to the gyms, and these kids started working out and doing CrossFit. And lo and behold, CrossFit has the snatch and clean and jerk.
Mhm.
Now, some of those kids decided they didn't want to do Cindy or Grace or Isabel or, whatever, but they really enjoyed the Olympic lifts. So
Mhm.
they switched over from CrossFit to the Olympic lifts. I mean, Maddie Myers is a great example. She was one. Then you got guys like, you know, uh, hard work pays off.
Matt
Uh,
Frazier?
yeah, Matt Frazier. You have
Yeah.
him
He
that
was a
went from
weightlifter.
weightlifting
Yeah.
to CrossFit.
Yep.
I mean, so it worked both ways, and people became very successful. The weightlifter became a successful CrossFitter, and the CrossFitter became a successful weightlifter. So
Yeah.
it was a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. I still contend that CrossFit is a barbell sport, and people that
Yeah,
are most proficient like with the barbell in terms of like cycling and strength, like they're going to do well in CrossFit. And I think Matt
yeah,
Frazier, like you said, he was a great example of that. Like he came in, his capacity wasn't very good, but that's something he could build up, relatively quickly. And he had the skill set to be very efficient with the barbell.
yeah,
And it took him super far. So,
yeah. Well, I think there's so much to be learned. I mean, even to this day, I do my courses, and the goals and objectives of my courses is to, teach coaches how to teach the snatch, the clean, and the jerk in a safe and efficient manner. Um, and I've had to back off that a little bit because understanding that for me, my feet underneath my hips,
mhm.
about hip width wide, is going to be where I'm going to place my feet on the snatch and the clean pulls, and that's on the jerk, and it doesn't lend itself efficiently to barbell cycling,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
So I have to understand, and my people that take my course have got to understand when I'm teaching my course, I'm talking about Olympic style weightlifting,
Right.
not weightlifting in the CrossFit arena. I'm not. That's not my. I'll let the people, other people talk about that and do that. So we'll talk about barbell cycling and understanding that when my feet move, and I have to bring them back, that it's going to, that time component might be a little bit more, but in my world, who cares? If I get a 60-second Isabel or Grace, wonderful. But why would I want to do a rounded back, stiff-legged deadlift, muscle snatch in 60 seconds? I mean,
Mhm.
that it's ugly. In my opinion, it could cause injuries. And if I
Mhm.
do it in 60 seconds, great. But Natalie did it in like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and it was a beautiful lift.
Mhm. Mhm.
Every rep was the 30 reps, but every rep was a great rep. Well, what the hell? So, I still think Natalie probably could have gone to the CrossFit Games
Oh,
and done
yeah,
and done
for
very,
sure.
very well.
Yeah.
But so you just have to pick your poison. And
Yeah.
I knew who was buttering my bread, so I
Mhm.
just keep my mouth shut, basically.
Yeah, I've coached CrossFit I started coaching CrossFit in 2013, I think, and I've coached full time at like a number of gyms. And that's something I would always tell people is you need one technique for lifting heavy weights once, right? So like kind of the classical snatch and clean and jerk technique that you're talking about. And you need a separate technique for cycling lighter
Yeah,
weights fast,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
they are
yeah,
two distinct things.
yeah,
So,
yeah. They really are. And you know, the people that pick that up, I mean, you watch Rich Froning cycle, Isabel or Grace or whatever, and then you watch Rich Froning when he snatches and he clean
mhm,
and jerks. They're two different movement patterns,
right.
you know, and you'll watch him typically, especially in the beginning, when he's doing Grace or Isabel, he would use his Reebok hard soled flat shoes. But when he
Mhm,
was doing the Olympic lifts, in a barbell fashion where they a ladder type situation, he would use his regular shoes, Olympic weightlifting shoes, his lifters, you
mhm,
know, and do quite well. So he was able to figure out what was going to work for him, you know, in that competitive cycle, depending on what the competition was.
right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that kind of brings me into another point talking about kind of technique. So one of the things that um, when you came and visited in Ann Arbor, I was still like a relatively new coach. I was still relatively new to like the Olympic lifts. And I remember you came and like watched one of my sessions and you were watching me snatch and I was, building up, doing some reps. And I did a snatch at like 80 or 85%, something like that. And I was like, man, I bet he's just gonna like rip this apart. And I was like, what do you think? And I remember you saying it looked fantastic, right? There's just like two major things. I think it was like driving with the legs off the floor and then keep
yeah,
pulling under the bar or something like
right,
that, right?
right, exactly,
And at that point in my like coaching career, it kind of shocked me how simple like your answer was to the technique. But that's something that like as I've developed and progressed as a coach, I've noticed that from basically all high level coaches is their
right,
ability to like really keep things simple and kind of triage like what are the major things, the most simple thing I can tell you that's going to kind of knock down like the most rocks in terms of
right.
technique.
Right, right, right. Well, okay. So years ago, I was a high school teacher and a coach, and I've got my classes going, and I'm teaching my kids the Olympic lifts. And my whole point was, you know, full extension, ankle, knee, and hip extension to create acceleration on the barbell, and then pulling your body down. But so this girl comes up to me. She's 15 years old. She's probably teaching freaking physics in at Stanford now. But at the
Mhm.
point she says to me, your comments, ankle, knee, and hip extensions is really confusing the class.
Hmm.
And I'm going, yeah, all right. So she says, why don't you just say jump?
Mhm.
And I'm going, shit, okay. So
Yeah.
from that time on, I started using the word jump with the idea of creating that ankle, knee, and hip extension to full extension and to create that acceleration through that middle
Mhm.
and understanding that the energy source comes from the ground and that ground based foot drive, leg drive is the most important aspect of that triple extension that creates elevation and acceleration on the bar. And then you figure it out that your feet, when their feet are underneath the hips, that's where your energy and power source is going to be most efficient. But then
Mhm.
as the feet slide out to that receiving, more stable position, the bar then, because as it's becoming weightless and my feet are sliding out and they're basically off the ground, that then I use that bar as my secondary energy source.
Mhm.
So I must continue pulling on that bar as it's trying to go down, and it is going to go down, but I want to delay that and use my arms now, which are my extremities, to
Mhm.
catapult me underneath that bar. So in reality, there's two energy sources. The ground is an energy source, but the bar is an energy source. So what ends up happening is that people come into this segment with verbal cues,
Mhm.
and the verbal cue of drop and catch just blows my mind because it's like, it's not anything like that.
Mm,
I'm driving hard, but if I drop without the understanding of using that bar as the secondary energy source, regardless of how much power I can get against the ground with that leg drive, if
mm-hmm,
I drop and then turn it over and try to catch, then that's very unaggressive, and
mm-hmm.
it's unnatural. It's
Yep.
soft. It's unaggressive. It's soft. It's not aggressive enough. So with me, my whole pattern has become that secondary energy source, and then I've got to drill like hell with
Mm-hmm.
tall snatches,
Yep.
snatch drops. I call them snatch, balance, no disc because I refuse to use the word drop. I hate it. I just want that to be active to understand that your whole body is surrounding itself with a positive energy source that if you use it, and you can know your positions and where the bar is, and understanding I'm going to the bar, I'm not going to the hole, but I'm going to the bar. I turn it
Mm-hmm.
over and punch the hell out of it. Then if I can get that wrapped around my brain housing group, I'm going to be pretty good. I get
Yep.
it, you know
Yeah. I,
A-
I,
and,
yeah, I just literally just posted something on Instagram, a post where I said, I hate, the cue drop under the bar,
oh
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
drop implies that you're passively moving underneath the bar, and we're never passive in weightlifting. We're actively pulling on that bar,
right,
until we're locking it out overhead. So
right,
yeah,
right, right.
you, so,
And it's crazy. I mean, we have one drill that we use, and we find out where the bottom position of the athlete is in the overhead squat. And now we're talking about deep overhead squat, but we'll take a PVC pipe and put it on the squat rings, and so
mm-hmm,
the athlete is going to be up, and they're going to pull a PVC pipe against those rings, right? And they're going to continue pulling on that bar as they pull them body. And this is all slow. They
mm-hmm,
pull themselves underneath the bar and then punch.
mm-hmm,
And it's all slow and easy, but it's hard to do.
mm-hmm,
I mean, if you keep tension on that bar as you're going under, you keep that bar up to that position, you can turn it over and punch your body down with it amazingly. But most of these athletes will pull, and then as soon as they go under it, the bar will drop down,
mm-hmm.
right? It'll release from that hook. It'll release, and then they have a hard time
Yep.
turning it over. But if they continue to keep tension on that bar and keep that bar up against these hooks, they keep pulling, 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 and then they pull themselves right into that position. It's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful to watch, and they get the idea of what that's supposed to feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So
Yeah, it's a great drill.
you brought up an interesting point. So you talked about triple extension, right? And that's the way that you teach the lifts is extension of the hips, knees, and ankles before descending underneath the bar.
Right,
So when I took my level one from Mark Canella, it was in like 2015, I think. Um, he told me that triple extension is a lie. He told me that if you try to focus on triple extension, you're too slow, right? And that if you slow down a lot of like the elite level athletes, you see that they never actually reach full extension of the hips, knees, and ankles all together at the same time. So what are your thoughts on that?
well, I'm not. I love Mark Cannell. I think he's a great coach, and everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses, and whatever in their styles of coaching. I can pull up on my phone several several athletes that hit that position. And it's
Hmm.
not straight up and down like this, but they're slightly behind the bar, where
Right.
they're fully they're extended fully, and this is the second before they're pulling themselves down and around the bar.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know what he would call that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's not triple extension, but it certainly
Hmm.
looks like it to me when you see a great athlete that is fully, they're up, ankles are up, their knees are fully extended, their hips are fully extended, their arms are straight, and they're in that good position if their head's facing that way.
Mhm.
So I would have to sit down and talk with him and have him
Mhm.
explain to me and show me. Maybe we're misunderstanding something. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm misunderstanding there. But uh, for me, triple extension right now becomes I'm going to jump as hard as I can against the ground.
Yeah.
I'm not going to jump high, but I'm going to
Mhm.
jump hard against the ground. And I likened it to a jump rope. If I've got a jump rope in my fist and it's hanging down here,
Mhm.
and there it is, and I have a weight right here, and I do that with the
Mhm.
jump rope, what does the weight do?
It's gonna
It
pop
goes
up.
up. It
Mhm.
goes up. Now the arms go up too, because the
Mhm.
ropes are like arms. So I do that insinuates the jump. That
Mhm.
is the jump right there. And so when I jump, the weight goes up. The arms are along for the ride, right? And the
Mhm.
arms automatically come up, but they don't start pulling on the bar until I go underneath the bar. So
Mhm.
I hit that full extension and I'm back underneath it as fast as I can. I don't hang out there.
Right,
I
right.
mean, I want to get to that position. And that position cannot be straight up.
Mhm.
That position has got to be slightly behind that weight because I've got to pull myself around the weight.
Right,
And
right.
so as I've driven, now my feet and my arms are pulling and my feet are moving and my arms are pulling all at the same time around the implement.
Mhm.
And I have to go to wherever the height is on that implement. It's
Yeah.
hard for me to go to the hole and then try to, you know, receive that bar. And that's when I probably would catch it, is that
Mhm.
I'd be down at the ground too soon, turn it over, and the bar would clamor on me. But
Crash, yeah.
if I can, and that's why I like tall cleans and tall snatches where I'm standing straight up and my arms are straight. I'm standing straight up and I do nothing but shrug, pull my body around the bar.
Mhm.
Obviously, I can't use very much weight. And I started out using PVC pipe because everybody wants that, give it that little hitch,
Mhm.
that little
Mhm.
drive with the legs. But I've taken away that the full leg drive. The only thing I have left is the traps are guiding me down.
Mhm.
The traps never guide the bar up. The traps guide me down under
Mhm.
that bar. So when I do the tall snatches, I'm shrugging, pulling, and my feet moving all at the same time. All
Mhm.
three of them have to happen at the same time in order for me to use that barbell as that secondary energy source.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not
Absolutely.
arguing with Mark, but I'd have to sit down and talk to him because I really do. I love that guy. He's a good man.
Yeah, no, and I'm not like trying to pitch you guys against each other or anything.
No, 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 I get it.
I think his thing was like you don't want to dwell on extension, right? You don't want to overextend. As soon as you hit the top, just like you said, you jump hard and boom, you're down,
Yeah,
right?
you're underneath it.
And so
And
I think that was kind of the
I think I
synopsis.
think I think that's exactly it. I think that's exactly it. Because if you're hanging out at the top, you're going to
Hmm.
get your ass kicked. I'll guarantee you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're hitting that top, and you're. I mean, it's just a position, and that's where the fundamentals of teaching for us stems from stance, grip, and positions. And
Hmm.
we teach six positions.
Hmm.
That's our philosophy. We teach those six positions, and we don't hang out at any one of them. We want to get our asses up there and get underneath the bars as fast and as efficient as we can.
Hmm. So I've got a question for you. So you said we're not hanging out at any of these positions in the lift, right? So when you teach the snatch, or more specifically, like when you teach the clean, do you teach people to be fast off the floor, or do you teach them to be controlled and develop speed off the floor when
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
breaking?
Great question. I think what it is that I think it depends on the lifter. I
Mm-hmm.
have an old military term. It's called slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's based on if I have an athlete that can, you know, drive that bar off the ground as fast as he can and hit all of his positions and is very efficient, outstanding, do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that most people we start out trying to control that position of bringing the bar from the ground to that good hang position, getting the knees out of the way, engaging the hips and the hamstrings together, and then exploding once I hit that position. But as I become more efficient, I can speed that position, that pull up off the ground, as long as I'm
Mhm.
hitting that position. But all of a sudden, if I'm pulling really hard and I'm going around my knees and I'm not engaging the hammies, then I've got to slow it down so that I can learn the right bar path,
Mhm.
and for me, the area of the base, which is a rectangular box around the feet, and
Mhm.
if I can keep that bar in that rectangular box, and let that bar come up to my hamstrings, or excuse me, my mid thigh, and I'm over the bar, my feet are big toe, little toe are balanced against the ground, and I can drive my feet full foot into that triple extension, or that jumping position, if you will, and keep that bar in that area of the base. I'm going to be the most efficient lifter I can be, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. So it depends, right? As
Yeah,
it usually does with like
right,
with every lifter. And I think that's something that I've learned too is I teach technique a specific way as well, but I've also realized that like different people are going to have different styles, right? Like
right.
everyone's built
Yeah,
differently.
right.
They have different muscle fiber makeup. So if someone's doing something that's a little bit unconventional, but it works for them and they're consistent, then you kind of let it fly.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is, what's the final goal of the athlete? I
Mm,
mean, how many Olympians have I coached in my 50 years of teaching and coaching? I
mm,
mean, I've had the opportunity of maybe coaching two or three,
mm,
and I mean, after over 50 years, I mean, so for me, the people that I work with are best if I can get them to the national championship. That would be
mm,
awesome. But even then, if I took 100 lifters that come to my gym, I might have 5 or 10 that will lift in a local meet.
mm,
Most of them are going to be CrossFit athletes that don't give a shit one way or the other whether
mm,
they are ever going to lift in a weightlifting contest. They just
mm,
want to be. They don't want to suck at the Olympic lifts. When Isabel and Grace come up, they don't want to suck.
mm,
And if they get in a ladder, they don't want to suck. They want to be able to snatch body weight and clean and jerk 1.25 times body weight. And they don't care whether the USA weightlifting is having a national championship or not. The
mm.
Matt Frasers of the world are different.
Right,
And
right.
so I think it just depends. And
Yeah.
for me, I used to be real stubborn about that kind of stuff because I was trying to develop a weightlifting program at a school, and so I was, but as I've gotten older, and the juice isn't necessarily worth the squeeze on a lot of that stuff. And I'll tell you, Sage has written, I think she's written an article on, don't be so enamored with the positions that you become unaggressive.
Yes. Yeah.
you
100%.
know
Yep.
and she says that people that are really into the want to get those positions perfect, when they screw up, then you know what, then they're you know they're screwed up. Hold
Yeah.
on, just did I lose you? There you go. So anyway, it there's that opportunity to understand that we've got, if I got an aggressive athlete that's got pretty good positioning, we're
Hmm.
going to do pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
agree.
so
I tell people that like being aggressive makes up for a lot of small mistakes, right?
absolutely,
And yeah,
absolutely.
you see that with like athletes trying to think their way like through the lifts and like feel their way
Oh,
through the lifts. And they got to be fast and they got to be aggressive.
that brings me to a point, because in my world, I played football at Notre Dame, and I say this at my courses all the time, but my first year at Notre Dame, I was a freshman walking in on campus, and I went to my first football practice there, precision put on. And the first 15 minutes of that practice was the same 15 minutes that I did for 4 years.
Mm,
Every practice that we had, every practice that we had for 4 years, that first 14 minutes was exactly 15 minutes was exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Never deviated, never changed. Right. So what does that tell me? The fundamentals the fundamentals with era ruled the roost. And
Mm-hmm.
I played on a national championship team. He believed so much in fundamentals that he did it the first 15 minutes. The same thing every 15 minutes of every practice. So for me, the Burgener warm up, the skill transfer exercises, three position snatches, along with at the very beginning the junkyard dog, those
Mm-hmm.
things is what I hold my hat on
Hmm.
with all my athletes. That's what I did the first 15 minutes. And it really doesn't even take 15 minutes. It takes about 8 minutes. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what we did every single workout. We
Mm-hmm.
would do the junkyard dog, the Burgener warm up, the skill transfer exercises, and three position snatches with the PVC pipe. And then later on, we started doing three position cleans. And one day we'd do the snatch, the next day we'd do the cleans. But it was always the same. It was always the Burgener warm up and the skill
Mm-hmm.
transfer exercises, right? And I think that drill work for 7 or 8 minutes, however long it took, really helped me develop, the national caliber teams and the athletes that we had. Those fundamentals and teaching fundamentals for me is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And in the CrossFit world, they don't take the time to do that. They say, well, coach, we only snatch once every 2 weeks, or we clean and jerk once every 2 weeks. I know, but you can snatch and clean every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
15, you can do 8 minutes of the Burgener warm up and skill transfer exercises for the snatch. You can do those jumping squats for the junkyard dog, and I'll guarantee it's a fitness thing, and it'll carry over to everything else you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And and there's a lot of people that they still do the Burgener warm up and the skill transfer exercises before every workout that they do in the CrossFit world, and they love it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. The fundamentals and just like drilling those positions over and over again. Um, that's something that I personally have kind of come back to because obviously when I was, first starting as a coach, the uh, technical execution, like I was very big on that. And then I moved more into focusing on just building pure strength and being a
right,
little bit less concerned with the technique. And I found myself kind of swinging back to with my athletes, really just hammering that consistency, right?
yeah,
Because
right,
I mean, you can be the strongest guy in the world, but if you're inconsistent with your technique when it comes to your top weights when you're in competition, then it's going to be a toss up of whether you're going to make lifts or not. So,
right.
yeah.
And God love Louis. I mean, Louis loved the Olympic lifts, and he and I, we were probably brothers in another life someplace. But
Mhm.
uh, I really respect him. But there's a lot of truth to what he does, and at the same time, he sent me out one of his best athletes he ever had, in this gal, and I
Hmm.
couldn't make her a weightlifter. She was too tightened up. She was too immobile, stronger
Mhm.
than hell, but she couldn't lift heavy weights fast.
Mhm.
She could
Mhm.
lift ginormous amount of weight slow, but
Right.
she couldn't get that explosive power involved in it. She just didn't have the body makeup. And I mean, I told Louis, I said, I'll take her because I think I can make her a good one, but it's going to take me a year to
Mhm.
break down all those. And she didn't want to. She
She didn't want
loved
to put in the
Louis.
time.
Oh no, she didn't want to put in the
Yeah.
time. She loved powerlifting, and
Hmm.
she was a great one for powerlifting, but she wasn't going to be anything in weightlifting.
Yeah. That brings up another point. So you commented on one of my posts with the banded cleans. And that
Right.
was something that Louis had me do when I was at Westside.
Of course. Yeah, of
And it's
course.
it's I don't think I've ever programmed banded cleans or snatches for any of my
Right.
athletes,
Right.
but it
Right.
was it was really interesting to see when I posted that this kind of like emotional visceral reaction people had to it. Like they were
Yeah.
like, this is the dumbest thing in the world, like why would you
Yeah.
ever do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was just curious on like your take on like using banded variations for like the Olympic lifts.
I think if you use the banded variations for using PVC pipe with the idea of pulling your body underneath the bar and
Mm,
continue pulling.
hmm,
I don't think there's any issue there at all. But
mm,
to take and utilize that same concept that the power lifters use with the bands, I get that. But when
mm,
you're driving that bar and you try to do that with a heavy weight,
mm,
and that bar, it's gonna crush you. I mean,
mm,
in my opinion. So using a barbell, I mean, starting out using PVC pipe, and then going up to PVC pipe filled with sand, and the idea of using a barbell with the idea of continue pulling, I don't see anything wrong with that whatsoever. Now,
mm,
and it goes along with the same deal with using that J hook of
right.
with the PVC pipe, because that's all you're really doing. And
Mm,
in with the band, you are feeling that bar going down. And you
right.
know
Right.
that you have to be strong on the turnover and the punch. So it's got to be a manageable, in my opinion, a manageable weight,
Mm,
and one that's not going to crush you with the potential of injury.
right.
So I have no problems with that drill whatsoever, as long as the weight is an extreme manageable and even lighter than manageable position, I would think. But
Yeah.
I love the idea of why I would use it to teach myself how to pull myself down while the bar is going to go down. But with the bands, it's actually going to go down harder and
Yeah.
faster. So you've got to
Yeah.
be in a situation that you're strong enough to keep that bar in a position of not going down too fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. He had me do banded snatches, he had me do banded cleans, and like I said, I've never programmed them for my athletes because for me, there's plenty of other variations you can do, right? And like
Right.
the bands are just it's the juice is not worth the squeeze, like you said. Uh, but I will say he did have me work up to like a heavy power clean with the bands and then take the
Right.
bands off and continue to
Oh
build
yeah.
up. And
Oh
you
yeah.
just you rip on that bar. Like it teaches
I
you to
know.
pull on that bar so hard.
Oh yeah.
So
No,
it
there's
was
no doubt. I mean, and Louis was a genius on that kind of shit. But he
yeah.
didn't give a shit if you got hurt or not.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
true. Yeah.
he was a freaking bulldog, he's a
Yeah.
junkyard dog. And I mean, he was a leader by example. And I will always and forever be a fan of
Hmm.
Louis Simmons, man. I mean, he went way too soon as far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned. But no, I'm not questioning anything that Louis Simmons does, right?
Hmm.
I just, for me as a coach, first of all, I would never give that to a beginner,
Right.
right?
Right.
I
Yep.
would I would have to wait till that athlete gets up to a certain level, and then it would be, if I was going to use it, it'd be done with very, very light weight to
Hmm.
get them to have the feeling of that full movement. And and that movement of, you better pull yourself down, brother. You can't drop here, because that bar is going to slingshot from the
Yeah.
top down, and it will kick your ass. So
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Well, coach, I got to run here. Like I said, I've got another call. I've got to hop on here in a few minutes, but hey, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I'm in South Bend, by the way. Close to your alma mater. Yeah.
You're living in South Bend now?
Yeah. Well, Granger, which is like right
Granger,
next
oh
door,
yeah,
but
I know where it
yeah.
is. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Next
I
yeah.
I'll come back here. I'll look you up.
Yeah, next time you're in town, let me know. And
Yeah,
we'll have to
I have a very good friend of mine that lives in South Bend. His name is Frank Pomerico. He was the captain of the 1973 national championship team. So,
awesome.
I go back and see him, and periodically I'll go in the summertime. And I don't like going back to the home football games because it's just too damn crowded. But
Yeah, it's a lot.
I
Yeah.
do like going to South Bend in the summertime and
Yeah.
getting a VRBO and just walking around campus. I still like doing that. So if I'm there,
Well, let me
I'll look
know.
you up.
Yeah.
All right, and
Awesome. All right.
I'll tell Casey and Ashley you said I.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
All right,
All right,
thanks,
coach.
Andrew.
Well, it's been a
Have a good one.
pleasure. See ya.
You bet. Bye bye.